This is an issue that arose in the context of one of the meetings held with the former Chief of Staff, Jeff Aberdeen, that was a precursor to your meetings with Nicola Sturgeon. Do you know whether the name of a complainant was shared at one of those meetings?
Yes.
Okay. Can I ask you how you know that? Because obviously we're interested in evidence being corroborated at this committee.
Because my former Chief of Staff told me that.
Okay. Is anybody else party to that information?
As far as I'm aware, and you'd have to ask the people concerned, but as far as I'm aware, there are 3 other people who know that to be true.
Okay, I believe the committee have written to them, so thank you very much for that. Can I take you to the Daily Record leak? Again, sticking with the interests of the complainers. How were you notified of the Daily Record story on the 23rd of August?
Well, can I go through that day in sequence? Because I think there's a bit more to it than the Daily Record story. This was, if I remember right, the 23rd of August, and I had a meeting with my legal team at Edinburgh Airport, and we were considering what to do, and basically when to lodge our petition for judicial review, because we'd had the decision from the Permanent Secretary the day before. And so we're meeting how to respond and basically when to lodge a petition. We received a communication from the Scottish Government saying that they were going to make a press statement on the fact of the complaints at 5 o'clock, which we've considered remarkable then, but I consider it even more remarkable now, because I now know that they were advised against any publicity by the police in a meeting 2 days previously, at least the Crown agent was. But they were going to make a statement at 5 o'clock. Now, obviously, any hope of confidentiality in the process would have gone once that statement was made, because the idea that the press would have just said, well, there's been 2 complaints and we're not going to report anything else, would have been extraordinary to believe. So we said in return that we would launch an interdict along with the judicial review in order to prevent that statement. The government response was that they would therefore withdraw the statement. Therefore, there was no need to put forward our interdict. At 4 o'clock, or roughly, we were told by the government that they'd received a query from the Daily Record, and were concerned that the Daily Record seemed to have knowledge of the complaints. But the Daily Record didn't come to us, and therefore, if we'd gone ahead with the interdict at that stage, given that we were interdicting a government statement as opposed to the supposition that some newspaper, then we might well have provoked the very thing we were trying to avoid. However, the Daily Record came to us about 8 o'clock and emailed us at 8:15 saying that they had a substantiation of their story. The phone call came to me. I said nothing in response, apart from the fact put it in writing. They did put it in writing, and the Daily Record put the story out at 10 o'clock. That was their deadline. I released a statement saying that I was going to sue the Scottish Government, and I held a press conference the next day, but the press conference didn't talk about the nature of the complaints. It talked about the judicial review and why I thought the government were behaving unreasonably and unlawfully. What then happened the next day is there was another Daily Record story which demonstrates that the Daily Record had either a copy of or an extract from the Permanent Secretary's decision report. So someone had to have given them that document, and subsequently it's been confirmed that the Daily Record had a document, whether it was the whole report or an extract from it. The Permanent Secretary was asked about this in questioning, and she said it caused enormous distress to everyone concerned, and I'm absolutely sure it did, to the complainants, to me, to everybody. The only question I would have for the Permanent Secretary is what, notwithstanding the leak, what did she think would have happened if she'd gone ahead and put out the statement at 5 o'clock on that day? And I find it extraordinary. As you know, the ICO has investigated the matter. They came to, the procurator came to the conclusion that she was sympathetic to the idea that the source of the leak was from within the Scottish Government, as she said. the government's internal review, wasn't an investigation, identified 23 people who had access to the information. But the ICO weren't able, they did say that the leak, of course, was prima facie criminal. It was a criminal leak. But they had 23 suspects and no ability to go beyond that in terms of determining who might be responsible for the leak. But said they were sympathetic to the idea that came from within the Scottish Government. Whoever did that should answer for what is a very, very serious matter which caused enormous distress and the implications that followed.
Okay, thank you for that response. Can I just pursue a couple of things you said? Firstly, the second leak, as I understand it, contained confidential information from one or both of the complainants. You said that this has been subsequently confirmed, that a copy of the report was given to the Daily Record. How was that subsequently confirmed? Can you tell me?
Well, there's no doubt that the Daily Record had the report because the language is identical in the report to parts of the Permanent Secretary's decision report. The editor of the Daily Record said they had a document in the Custody Walk documentary last year. So I had no reason not to be. I mean, the Daily Record have not, as far to my knowledge, certainly not, I would think, have said anything direct to the ICO or to any investigator, but he said it on the Custody Walk documentary. But they had the document, there's no question about that, or part of the document, or an extract from it. There's one point of some confusion that I certainly haven't got to the bottom of yet, and that is that the ICO's procurator's report lists the various interested parties who have had copies of the report. It lists, for example, the complainers. It lists myself. It comes to the not unreasonable assumption that neither the complainants or myself had any interest in leaking the contents of the report. It lists the Crown Agent, but the police, of course, who some people suggested might be the source of the leak, of course, had refused to accept the report from the Crown Agent, so it couldn't have been the police. But it does list the Principal Private Secretary to the First Minister in that group of people who now I'm not, let me be absolutely correct here, I'm not suggesting Principal Private Secretary of the First Minister leaks things to the Daily Record. But when he came before this committee, he firstly confirmed that he had a copy or had received on behalf of the office a copy of the report, but subsequently wrote to the committee saying that wasn't correct. My question is quite simple, is why did the Procurator for the ICO list the First Minister's office in the list of people, interested parties who had access to the report? I don't know the answer, I just know that that was done, and I can't believe the Procurator for the ICO did it for no reason. There had to be a reason for believing that. My own feeling about this is that civil servants, I'm not saying that civil servants never leak, but they actually seldom leak. But if they do leak, they don't leak to the political editor of the Daily Record. And therefore, I think the leak was politically inspired, from who I think should and require further investigation. I think the matter shouldn't be at an end. I think it's a hugely serious matter. And one thing I would say, just finally on this, over the last few months, there has been a major police operation in Scotland, ordered by the Crown Office, trying to find out who leaked information to Kenny MacAskill MP, which came to this committee. That investigation, that I know for a fact, because Mr MacAskill told me a day or so ago, is still ongoing. And at the express wish of the Crown Office, that's been made clear, incidentally, by the police to everybody they've interviewed, including me, incidentally. My question is this: where has been the police investigation ordered by the Crown Office into what has been, for many people concerned, not least the complainants, a hugely distressing leak to the Daily Record in August of 2018. As far as I know, there has been nothing said or done by the Crown Office in terms of trying to determine where that leak came from. there does seem to be a disparity in their attitude to criminal behaviour as they see it.
Can I just pursue this very quickly, because I'm very conscious of time? In your submission to us, at page 10 of Appendix 4 in our papers, Appendix D, sorry, that you talk about, I am confident that I know the identity of those involved in the leak. Do you have any evidence to support that beyond what you've just told us? And are you suggesting that this requires further police investigation?
I think it does require further police investigation. I do believe I know the identity, but I'm not here at the committee to speculate on individuals that I cannot substantiate. Every statement that I make before this committee, I intend to have documentary evidence to support and restricted to that. But on your question as to whether there should be a police investigation of this matter, I think there absolutely should be police investigation of the matter, because whoever leaked that document at that time caused enormous distress, certainly broke the law, and certainly there have been huge consequences for all concerned as a result of that leak.
Thank you, Mr. Salmond. Convener, I'm very conscious of time, and we've taken a long time to get through one section. We have 2 more to do. I wonder whether it would be appropriate before we break to ask whether Mr. Salmond would be available to stay longer to ensure that our questioning can be completed.
Well, I think I'll consider that at the break. Thank you, Ms. Baillie.